What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Julian here from Photos Farah. Thank you so much again for tuning in today, guys. Today's going to be a really cool episode. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter than the last video, and it's going to be my first tips and tricks video for you guys. I'm going to show you why I use the Radial Filter in Lightroom. 3 tips and tricks that I always use in a lot of my workflow. Many people know what the Radial Filter does, but for those of you that don't know what it is, I'm going to show you why it's an amazing tool, guys. It's so easy to use. It can change your images front to back, okay? Also, keep in mind that a lot of the techniques I'm going to be showing you are able to be done in Photoshop as well with a lot more control. I always tell you that Photoshop is a much more controlled program than Lightroom. But if you're new to Lightroom, you're new to photo editing and retouching, the Radial Filter tips and tricks video is for you. Without further ado, guys, let's jump into Lightroom. Hey guys, so now we're in Lightroom and I'm going to show you guys the tips and tricks that I use with the Radial Filter. So for anybody who doesn't know what the Radial Filter is, it's the little filter right over here that can be accessed in the top right of the screen. Okay, you basically click on the filter and then you'll have a series of settings that will open. So your filter gives you options such as controlling the temperature of the image and the tint, as well as all of your basic exposure adjustments, clarity, sharpness, contrast. And then you can also invert your filter, which I'll show you later. So 3 uses that I use the Radial Filter for when I'm not working in Photoshop. One of them would be to dodge and burn, or to lighten and darken images and areas of the image to either draw attention or diverge attention away from the viewer. I also use the Radial Filter to create custom vignettes instead of using the actual vignette in Lightroom. I find there's much more control. And the final thing I use the Radial Filter for is to add or accentuate light coming in from an image that's already present. So without further ado, let's get going. So here's the Radial Filter. I'll click it. Once you're in on the main screen, to use the Radial Filter, basically you'll click on the left mouse or whatever you're using and you'll drag to open the filter. It can be small, it can be large, it can be an oval. No matter size you want, you can click on it and drag it anywhere in the image. You can even rotate it if you're new to the filter and you don't know how to use it. Then you can even click on over at the bottom, show selected mask overlay. That'll show you the areas where the filter is affecting. Right now it's affecting all the areas on the outside. So that's if you want to create a vignette. However, let's say we want to darken these trees over here. We'll have to invert the filter right away so that it's only affecting this area over here inside these trees. Okay, and as you can see, it's also sort of spilling out over the filter. Well, that's the feather. The more feather you are, the smoother the transition is to the filter. The less feather, the harsher the transition is. So as you can see, this is a very sharp circle. So any adjustments made obviously will feather over and you're going to be able to see them. I tend to keep my feather around the 50 to 60 region depending on what I'm doing. Okay, so these trees right over here, I want to make them a little bit warmer, add a little bit more clarity. I take the Radial Filter and I put it over the trees. I go into my sliders and I up the clarity a little bit. Okay, and I could even up the warmth a little bit on those trees, just a tad. And then I turn off my selected mask overlay. And as you can see, the trees right now, here's a before and after button right here. Before, after, before, after. So you can see the dramatic change that the Radial Filter did just on that area of the trees. That's just brightening up an area. You want to do the same thing on the other area, you could. You can add a new Radial Filter. Let's say I want to brighten up this building. Open up the filter, drag it roughly to the stage of the building, to the actual design of the building right here. See where your filter over here, show selected mask, is affecting. Right now it's affecting everywhere outside the building. So we need to invert that right there, to invert it to the filter. Now let's add some warmth in the building. Perhaps a little bit of clarity and maybe some contrast on that building. Let's take off the selected overlay and see what it did. Before, after, before, after. So you can see there's some actual very nice results. So that's one area of using the filter. You can dodge and burn, you can highlight and darken areas of the image. You can have as many filters as you want. You can even right click on the filter and duplicate it. When you duplicate it, it actually doubles and triples the effects. If I keep it on the image, it'll actually accentuate the effect. Or if you want to keep the same settings for each filter, you can duplicate them and drag the filter elsewhere. So you'll have the same settings for all those filters on all the other buildings. It'll be the same settings. You can also delete the filters by right-clicking, delete, delete, delete. And let's delete this one, delete. So that's one use of using radial filters, dodging and burning. This is a very short video, guys, so I'm going to try and go as quick as I can. The second way I use filters is instead of using the Lightroom vignette, which would be in effects, so I can create a vignette if I want it here on the image. It does give you some control for sure. The Lightroom post-crop vignetting is good, but I don't use it very often. I instead prefer to use my radial filter right here and create my own vignette, which gives me much more control of my image. So let's say I want to have these buildings in focus over here and just darken the rest. Well, I'll bring my vignette about over here. I'll close up my filter. I'll check where it's affecting. It's affecting the outsides, which is what I want. And then I'll start gradually lowering my exposure to create my own custom vignette, really focusing where I want that light to be, which is directly in the center over here. Okay? So that's another use of using these radial filters. Remember, guys, you can control them. You can control your vignette. You can enlarge it. You can make it smaller. You can rotate it. Sorry about that. You can rotate your filter. There's a million different things that you can do. This is just the second thing. The third thing that I will use my radial filter for, and this is often when there's a light source coming into an image. As you can see in this image was shot last year with a Canon 300. It was with my 6D. It was shot around the sunset time. I would figure it was around 8 o'clock at night in the summer. And if you zoom into the image, you can see that there are shadows casted on the right side of the buildings. Okay? Over here, over here. Sorry guys, I haven't cleaned up the chromatic aberration. I haven't done any editing on this file. It's a completely raw file that's been untouched. So what I would like to do is I'd like to add some nice light around this area right over here. I'd like to take my area and I'd like to bring in some extra golden warm light, that soft glow that you often see photographers do. Well, how do I do that? It's very simple. I'll basically underexpose my image by about a stop or two, depending on how I feel. In this case, let's go for about 0.7, okay? I'll take my radial filter and I'll bring the light in from the side where the sun is coming in, okay? Now guys, keep in mind this can also be done in Photoshop, like I said, with much more precision. Same thing goes with the dodging and burning, which I'll be showing you guys in the coming months. However, you move your radial filter, okay, and you slowly blend in that light. How do I add my light? Well, I use the infamous dehaze function. I start by adding some dehaze, okay? Make sure your filter obviously is inverted. I start by adding some dehaze, okay? Then I warm up that image, showing that golden light really coming in there nicely, okay? You can even decrease the clarity a bit to really smooth it out, and you can even increase the exposure if you want, okay? I'm dragging it out just a little bit, okay, to feather it off. So this is how I add my golden light on the right or left side of my image when I feel light is coming in. Keep in mind you shouldn't do this if there are no light sources anywhere in your image, guys. If this is a cloudy day, it makes absolutely no sense to be doing this because it's not going to make sense in your image. Keep in mind this takes a lot of trial and error. This is a simple example. Nothing has been edited here. Before, after, before, after, before, after, okay? So obviously I'd have to use multiple filters in here. I would even add a second filter and I would do the same thing. This takes a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of practice. You need to make sure your light is feathered properly and that it makes sense. I apologize for the screen flicker. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Add some more dehaze. Add some more warmth. Okay. That'll give you that golden light that looks like it's coming from the right side of the image. Okay. To really accentuate that part of the image. So guys, there you have it. Those are 3 uses, fast uses for the radial filter. Let me show you the before and after image. Nothing else was done here, okay? So look, you can see over here, very basic image. There is light coming, but this image, there's so much more dimension coming in just by that one filter. And look, if I add another filter at the end of the image, keep in mind I do the vignette and adding in my light at the end of my images, guys, okay? So let's say I want to add in my vignette right now. to add more dimension, well, I can do that. Add in a little more dimension on the vignette. Maybe bring these filters in a little more, stronger. Okay. Look at the before and after, guys. Look at the difference in dimension. Obviously, I would have done a lot more editing had this been a full workflow. I would have done a lot more dodging and burning, clarity, color grading, and contrast, which I didn't do. But this is just to give you an example. So I hope this tutorial helped you. I hope that you learned a little bit from it. If you have any questions about what I've done, you can feel free to comment, email me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to edit one of your photos together or challenge me with one of your photos, I'd be happy to help you guys in the field. So with that being said, I wish you guys a great day and thank you so much for tuning in. Until next one.